Nobody ever tells you this. Not dating coaches, not your older brother, not the guy at the gym who swears he's figured women out. There's a moment, 5 seconds long, that happens right after a hug ends. And in those 5 seconds, she's reading you in a way that bypasses everything you've ever said, everything you look like, everything you've built. She's not thinking, she's feeling. And what she feels in that window decides something permanent about how she sees you. Most men let that moment dissolve. They fill it with a joke, a look away, an awkward step back. They don't even know the moment exists. But the men who understand what to do in those 5 seconds, she'll remember them for years, not because of what they said, but because of how they made her feel when words weren't happening. Stay with me, because this is going to rewire something. Here's the thing about hugs. Men think the hug is the moment, the closeness, the warmth, the physical contact. That's what matters, right? Wrong. The hug is the setup. What comes after is the scene. And most men, good men, decent men, men who genuinely care, walk away from that scene like they accidentally left money on the table. They don't know they dropped it. That's the painful part. Think about the last time you hugged a woman you were interested in. What happened when it ended? You probably pulled back, maybe smiled, said something, laughed a little, moved on. Completely normal, completely forgettable. Because here's what's actually happening inside her in that moment. Her nervous system just came down from a peak of closeness. The oxytocin spiked, the walls softened, and for a handful of seconds she's wide open, not vulnerable, just present, just available to feel whatever happens next. And if what happens next is nothing, if you fill that space with noise or comedy or movement, her nervous system says, he didn't feel it either. Or worse, he felt it, and it made him uncomfortable. Either way, the window closes. You didn't miss those moments because you weren't enough. You missed them because no one ever handed you the translation. Research from the University of California found that nonverbal behavior in the moments immediately following physical contact carries more emotional weight than the contact itself. Dr. Matthew Hertenstein, who spent years studying touch and human communication, documented that people communicate distinct emotions through touch, and that the meaning is registered not during the touch, but in how the interaction resolves, how it resolves. By the end of this, you will know exactly what to do and what not to do in those 5 seconds. Stay until the last point, because the final signal is the one most men never reach. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with what I call the still second. Here's the scene. The hug just ended. Maybe it was a greeting, maybe a goodbye, maybe one of those hugs that lasted a beat longer than expected, and you both felt it, but neither of you named it. Arms release. And here's where most men immediately move, physically, verbally, energetically. They step back. They say something. They grab their drink. They do anything other than simply be still, just for 1 second. One quiet, unhurried second. What she actually registers is whether your body says, I'm okay with what just happened, or I need to escape what just happened. Psychology calls this affect regulation, the ability to sit inside an emotional moment without needing to discharge it immediately. When a man can be still after something tender, her body reads it as security. Most men rush to fill the silence because they're nervous. That nervousness makes sense, but she doesn't experience it as nerves. She experiences it as discomfort with her, like you needed to get away from what just happened. 1 second of stillness, eyes that aren't scrambling, a breath that's unhurried, not a lingering stare. Just 1 second of a man who is completely unbothered by the fact that something real just happened between two people. She will feel that 1 second for days. The second signal is what I call the look that doesn't ask. After the hug resolves, most men look at her with a question on their face. Not a spoken question, a felt one. Their eyes say, was that okay? Did that land? Do you like me? She feels that question. She may not be able to name it, but her nervous system reads it as neediness wrapped in a pleasant exterior. Here's what happens. She was just close to you. Her guard was down. And then she looks up, and you're looking at her like you need a grade on the moment. Like her reaction is the thing that will tell you whether you're allowed to feel good about what just happened. That transfers the weight to her. Suddenly, she's responsible for your emotional state. Suddenly, the soft moment becomes work. Research on attachment behavior shows that anxious patterns manifest most clearly in the moments directly after physical contact, not during it. The release reveals what someone believes about themselves. The look that doesn't ask isn't cold. It's warm, present, slightly private. Like you notice something good and you don't need her to confirm it. Like you're keeping something to yourself. She will spend a long time wondering what you know that she doesn't. The third one almost nobody talks about. And it's so simple it almost sounds too small to matter. I call it the name drop. 5 seconds after the hug, not before, not 10 seconds after, say her name. Casually, naturally, like it belongs in your mouth. In a sentence if it fits. You know what, Sarah? I'm really glad you came tonight. Just her name, followed by something real. Research on name recognition from behavioral neuroscience confirms this. Hearing your own name activates the brain's self-referential processing. It draws immediate, full attention. It creates a sense of being seen, of being specific rather than interchangeable. When you say her name in the softness right after physical closeness, those two things fuse. The warmth of the hug and the sound of her name become one memory. She doesn't analyze that. She just feels it. And what she feels is, he notices me. Not the idea of me. Me. Most men only use a woman's name as a formal greeting and then drop it entirely. The timing is what makes this different. Not when you walk in. After the hug is over, when everything is still warm and the walls are still soft. Try it once. Watch what happens to her eyes. What I'm about to share next is where most men stop paying attention, right before it matters most. The first 3 signals are things you do, things you can practice, but the next 2 come from somewhere deeper, and they're the difference between a man she likes and a man she genuinely cannot stop thinking about. The 4th signal is the unheld breath. Here's a moment you've lived but never noticed. The hug ends, you pull back, and almost without realizing it, you exhale. A real exhale. Not performed, not theatrical. Just the natural release of a person who just experienced something they actually wanted to experience. Most men hold their breath through close moments. Not deliberately. The tension does it. The focus on doing it right does it. And when the hug ends, there's still that held breath. Physical evidence of a man who was slightly braced the entire time. She doesn't know you held your breath, but she felt the controlled quality. And even if the hug was warm, something in it felt effortful. Research on physiological synchrony by psychologist Dr. Eri Hassan at Princeton showed that people's breathing patterns begin to synchronize during moments of emotional resonance. When you exhale naturally after closeness, you're not just releasing air, you're completing a signal. You're telling her body, I was actually there. It was real for me. Most men suppress the exhale because they don't want to seem too affected, too moved, too into it. But the natural exhale, the unguarded one, communicates genuine experience, not performance, real presence. Let yourself breathe. When the quiet beat arrives after the hug, just breathe. Not a sigh, not a statement. Just a man who was close to someone he actually wanted to be close to, and his body said so without asking permission. That breath is more intimate than anything you could say. The last one. Sit with this one. I call it the slow return. After the hug, after the stillness, the look, the name, the breath, life resumes. The conversation continues, or you two part ways, or someone says something and the moment folds back into ordinary time. Most men rush this return to normal. They bounce back fast, sharp, verbal, present, performing again. Like the tender thing that just happened was a blip they need to recover from. And she watches the speed of that return. Full speed says, That wasn't actually significant. Let's move on. Let's both pretend we're fine with pretending. A slow return says, I'm not in a hurry to leave what just happened. I can carry it with me. Social psychologist Dr. Zick Rubin's work on intimacy showed that the time people sustain emotional register after a close moment is one of the strongest behavioral predictors of genuine interest. Not the moment itself, the residue it leaves in how you carry yourself after. When there's still something warm in your voice 10 seconds later, 20 seconds later, she feels followed. Not chased, followed. There's a difference. Chased is someone coming toward her for their own reasons. Followed is someone who was moved and is still slightly inside the experience. Most men think the move is to come back strong after a tender moment. Show that you're still sharp, still confident, still fine. Don't let her see that it affected you. That thinking costs men more than almost anything else. The man who lets it linger, who lets the warmth still sit in his tone 30 seconds later, tells her something no amount of confidence or wit ever could. You actually mattered to me. In real time. Without editing. And a woman who feels that will spend a long time thinking about why she can't stop thinking about you. Here's the truth underneath all of it. None of this is a move. None of it is technique. You can't paste these 5 signals onto a man who is fundamentally performing. She'll feel the seams every time. What all 5 have in common is this. They are evidence of a man who was actually there. Not managing, not monitoring, not calculating. There, present, affected, and secure enough to let that be visible. What women find irresistible at the end of all of this is a man who is full, not reaching outward to be completed by her reaction. A man who doesn't need her to confirm the moment was real because he already knows it was. That quality, that fullness, is what she's scanning for. Not in your words, not in your looks. In the 5 seconds after the hug is over, when nobody's performing anymore and all that's left is what's actually true about you. You weren't missing confidence, you weren't missing charm, you were missing the map. Now you have it, the still second, the look that doesn't ask, the name drop, the unheld breath, the slow return, 5 signals, 5 seconds, one moment that changes everything. If you stayed until the end, drop the word present in the comments. That's the one word that holds all of this together. And I want to see who actually stayed. Every week, I break down the communication patterns most men never learn. The ones that live in silence, in posture, in the space between words. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if this resonated, I made a video specifically about what she's reading in your eye contact in the first 30 seconds of seeing you again after time apart. It's on your screen right now. Don't sleep on that one.